everyone, and welcome back to the Owl Pod, the official podcast of Temple Athletics. I'm Kevin Copp. My guest today is Temple men's crew head coach Brendan Cunningham. Brendan is a 2010 graduate of Temple University and a 4-year letter winner on the men's crew team who won races in the Dadvale Regatta, Mayor's Cup, Murphy Cup, Bergen Cup, Connect Cup, among others. His coaching career has included stops at Washington College, Yale, Penn, and Drexel before finally returning to his alma mater as head coach of the Temple men's crew program in 2023. In the years since, Cunningham has guided the Owls to their first Varsity 8 win in the Dadvale Regatta since 2021, a trip across the pond to the prestigious Henley Regatta in England, named 2025's IRA Comeback Team of the Year, and the coaching staff led by Cunningham was named 2025 IRA Coaching Staff of the Year. With the 2026 season just now underway, there is no better time than to catch up with men's crew head coach and Temple's own Brendan Cunningham after this quick word from our OwlPod sponsors.
From Westchester to Doylestown, from Drexel Hill to Lansdale to Philly, we all look out for each other, stepping up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong. We've been deeply rooted in our communities for more than 85 years, and that connection to members has earned us our spot as the #1 health insurer in the region. So while you look out for your neighbors, know IBX is always looking out for you. Learn more at IBX.com.
So there are novices that are truly just picking it up for the first time, but you...
There are, yeah. No,
yes.
I had prior experience before getting to Temple. All my brothers had rowed, and it was something that I got into through the high school team. It was a great kind of development team program, and being able to go out there and find a sport, and then be able to do it at the college level was something that was pretty special. And so that novice year was, so the way rowing works is there was 3 categories at the time. There was varsity, junior varsity, or 2V, and then freshman 8, right? And at some point in that time, I can't remember, I think it might have been 08, it went varsity, second varsity, third varsity. So now freshmen could compete up in the varsity level at the national championship. And so it used to be you'd have your varsity, you'd have your second varsity, your JV, and then you'd have your freshman 8. And so for that first year, I competed on the freshman novice squad. And so that, I guess that first bio would be Sears. That was like the big, is it SIRAs?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was Sears. That was going down and competing down in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with that 4, and we won. And, that was kind of the first race where, like, whoa, like we started out with a freshman 8. And just through different steps along the way, we came to a quick 4, freshman 4. And so it was 3 other guys and a coxswain who had come into that freshman year. And interesting enough, for any alums, rowing alums listening, Pat Ellis was the coxswain whose dad had coxed at Temple.
Oh, wow.
Under Gavin White. So it was really cool. It was cool to, looking back on it, it was cool. At the time, he was Pat, So it's like you didn't really make that connection all the way through. But, no, it was a really cool experience.
Now, where were you in the pecking order? You said your brothers rowed. Where are you in the family pecking order?
I'm the youngest.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the youngest. And so it was, even before high school, getting every Saturday, Sunday was going to a rowing race, right? And you were going down there. And so, I was familiar with the rivers, familiar with the sport. I hadn't done it yet. Couldn't wait to try it when I got old enough, picked it up that first year and just stuck with it all the way through and just, getting faster. That's what's kind of fun with the sport is it really is about what you put into it is what you get out of it, right? So learning the basics, very fortunate there, being able to be in a program where it was competitive, right? And so you're going out, and even though it looks like we only race 6 times out of a year,
yeah,
every practice can be a race if it's a specific day for that workout. And so there's just so many opportunities there if you're just thinking about it 6 days a week, just you're racing, you're competing, right? And all the way through. And what was interesting there was I think we have practice early now with the Temple team. as high schoolers, it's a 4:45. Like you're going out on the river, and they're sending kids out in the, it's there's not a lot of light out there, right? And you're going out, and you got, high school athletes going out there, and just the responsibility and accountability of steering those eights, with those coaches next to them, all the way up and down the river. You learn a lot of things pretty early on that, like, hey, we got to make this work. We got to, and you're getting off the river by 7, and then you had to be at school by 7:45.
I was going to say,
right?
our high school started at 7:32.
Yeah,
I had that time etched into my brain forever.
Yeah.
That was the first bell, was 7:32, class at 7:35. So you got to be early.
Yeah, the first 90 minutes of that practice, it was pretty dark outside, and then you got to see the sunrise, and it was cool. No, but it was a really good place to develop and find the sport and get a lot of strokes in and learn to compete.
Well, and I assume, was Bonner, for your family, chosen? Rowing is still not a common, even in a relatively rowing-rich area that we are here in Philadelphia. Now, I was lucky. I grew up in King of Prussia. Upper Merion was a public school that had a rowing team, and we hosted a regatta, and so that was always, for me, not as a rower, but as a broadcaster, that was like the highlight of my year. I get to call a regatta. It was so unusual and so interesting, and so I really developed the love for the sport through that. But was Bonner chosen with the idea that, again, you're not going to be able to go and do this everywhere. It's not like soccer or football where every school has a program. Is that kind of what led you there?
I think it was Bonner happened to have rowing. That's where I went to school.
Yeah.
I don't think I was traveling anywhere else. I think that was the place I was going, and it happened to have rowing. And, luckily for me, my brothers got into it, and, it was a chance to continue, kind of what they were doing. And so it was cool. It was, again, being on the weekends, seeing the stuff, and then being able to try it when I got the chance. I think it was really cool. And credit to those coaches, right? Like, they're also waking up, that early to kind of, it was a passion for them, and it was something that they wanted to do, and they were doing it day in, day out. The one coach was a U.S. Olympian, and his brother were coaching as well. And then there were some Bonner alums that were also helping out with the program and helping it through. And it just, coming back to those, you just learn a lot of things. Like, you would learn a lot of things at school, and then you would learn a lot of things on the river, whether coming up short on some days or how to deal with, a situation as far as, like, competitive situation, like what happened there. Like, it still is a team sport, and being able to take athletes at the beginning of the year and getting them all to row the same, so that by the end of the year, they're in a spot where they can compete and a spot where they can win, is something that makes it a special experience. How
do you come to choose Temple? I imagine, obviously you have great roots here in the city, in the area, but, how does Temple emerge as the spot for you?
I didn't choose Temple. Temple chose me, right? And so that's at the time, it was Pete Gergo was the coach, and he was recruiting, and coming out and saying, hey, he rode at Temple. He rode at Bonner. He rode at Temple, and he, came out and said, I think it would be a really good fit. I think you should come down and give it a look and check it out and see the school, and there's a lot of advantages there to, staying closer to home in state, right? And so being able to stay on the Schuylkill was special, parents being able to come down, watch the racing, right, knowing what it is in the city of Philadelphia. You still have Boathouse Row right there, right? You're familiar with the course. But went to the Fox School of Business, right? So they had the major I was looking for. So I really think it was a good fit, and it was what I was looking for. And shout out to Pete Gergo for coming out to that practice and talking a little bit about Temple.
Well, what was the experience to kind of, this brings it back to basically where we started. So you join, you have great success in that freshman 4, novice 4 boat, Sierra's Cindy Cup at the Dad Vales, you move up to 2V8, you move up to the Varsity 8. Just by the kind of biographical markers, you have a great 4-year undergraduate career here. What was your enjoyment of it? What was, kind of what stands out to you in your time, those 4 years here in the program?
Yeah, no, that's great. And, working under Gergo in that first year and then moving up and being able to work with Dr. White, and just like, you just going out and just like, you still remember the practices, some of the races, but more so just going out and being able to compete and being able to, where do we sit on the standard? Where is it? Where are we going on this? Am I able to improve from the last time I did it? As far as standout, I think, always Dad Vales was a special regatta for us, right? And so it's always kind of working towards that, and where do we match up? How do we kind of get through there? But I think one of the ones that stood out was San Diego Crew Classic my senior year, and just just perseverance all the way through, from getting from Philadelphia with a group of individuals all the way out to California to race. I think it really was like kind of like, just now being on the other side with logistics, now I see like that is it. It's not always smooth sailing, but you always got to have a next plan. And I think, Gavin was a great coach, but then also being able to instill like, you always got to have a plan, always got to have a plan of action for what's next.
Did you always at that time have in the back, you said you went to the Fox School of Business. What was the kind of career trajectory? Did you always have coaching in mind? It seems like, hearing you now, you have a very philosophical approach to what the sport is, what the sport can do for people, both as athletes and as people. Was that always kind of somewhere in your mind in terms of what would be there after college for you?
I think Temple led to a great opportunity to get an education, right? And along that way, I was able to pair that with rowing, right? And so like those two things at the time are pretty important. Academics, athletics, I'm able to do these two. These are things that I really enjoy. Coming up, the kids on our team right now, they call it the J word. Do you know what the J word is? Job. Yeah. The seniors are calling it the J word. They gotta start working towards that. So my senior year, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I didn't. Coaching wasn't on. Like, is that what I'm gonna do? Like, where do I want to go? And so my brother was coaching at a women's program, and he said, get a grad assistant. And I was like, what is that? So I look into it, right, and start looking around, and there's one in a school in Maryland I hadn't heard of before, right? And so I looked into it a little bit further and found that was a place that I would like to go down and explore this coaching and, furthering the education piece. And so went down there, and it just happened, went down there, and the guy that's down there was the guy that wrote the book on boat rigging, rowing rigging, right? I don't know, can I say his name or?
Sure.
Yeah, Mike Davenport.
Yeah.
Nuts and Bolts Guide to Rigging. Nuts and Bolts Guide to Rigging. And so it was when you're an athlete, right? Like you're doing the rowing piece. There's a lot of moving parts, right? You don't get into the rigging too much, right? And so going down there, kind of like, all right, you have an understanding of the rowing, right? And now it's like, well, there's all these other moving parts that you can make adjustments for the rowing, right? And so learning that aspect was really interesting under Mike, and just, he was very much into professional development. I think at the time he had developed U.S. Rowing's coaching conference, and so he was very much into like more learning, like always learning. Like, you don't know everything, like keep going, like be a sponge, just absorb as much as you can here. And I think that was pretty important for the time there, just being able to absorb and like learn from here. He small school in Maryland, he hosted a coaching conference, and that's how he got a lot of coaches down to his program to check out his school, and so like they'd go back to their home programs and be like, hey, go check that place out, right? And so it reminded me at the time, I was like, Temple used to do a coxswain clinic, right? And so like you would get all these coxswains from all over the area, like you knew to go, Temple has this coxswain clinic, and that's something we want to bring back. We want to bring back the coxswain clinic that Dr. White hosted every year on Temple's campus, and that's something. Well,
you could see what the benefits would be to kind of making your program the hub of this thing. Yeah. And I mean, what an experience. I mean, you just kind of hit the jackpot, it sounds like, as a GA. Not every graduate assistantship is set up to really put you in the position for success the way that one is. Yeah, no. So is it from there, I mean, it's right on to Yale is next? Is that correct?
That's true, yeah. So it was It was got the grad assistantship, that was taking some classes, and then but being able to really go all in with the rowing piece was cool. But I was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I want to see what it's like at the top level. What is it like at the top level? And got in touch with a coach at Yale, and can't pay you. Like, great, I'll be there in August. I will figure it out, right? So then it's like you're going up there, and again, just being a sponge, like just learning, just being able to be in the room and hear the conversations and hear what are they saying? How does he, like, Steve Gladstone is one of the best collegiate coaches. And so being able to learn from him, being able to learn from Sam Baum, who at the time was the recruiting coach, and then also being able to learn from Joel Scroggin, like just all three of those guys working together and how they build a team, how they build the confidence of the athletes up. Again, the logistics side, right? Like, you're doing a lot of the logistics, which is great because then you're like in it, then you're like, all right, this is how it kind of operates all the way through. And so, figuring out bar backing and then, volunteer coaching on the other side, and it was a great year experience. And I got to the end of that year and I was like, okay, can I turn this into a paid gig, right? And so then I started applying places, and that's how I ended up at Penn.
Yeah, and you don't leave Philadelphia since, which is pretty good work if you can get
checking
it.
Off all the
Penn,
big fives.
Drexel, Temple from there. For folks that don't know, I mean, when you talk about top of the top, the Ivy League is as competitive rowing conference as there exists in the. You're
well, there's the Pac-12.
Yeah,
Pac-12 is competitive too.
Yeah,
but yeah,
you're talking about particularly in the Eastern Seaboard. This is as high a level as it gets, and so you get from.
And I misspoke. It's not the Pac-12. I think it's the Mountain Sports.
Who knows now? Yes,
that one. Yeah.
We continue to realignment hits.
There are teams on the West Coast that have some speed as well, so we just want to make sure we don't.
For sure. But I mean, you're getting an education here, going Yale, Penn, and then obviously getting the opportunity to spend as much time as you did at Drexel and to really be a part of taking that program to unprecedented heights. I imagine just kind of picking up pieces along the way that are eventually leading you to this opportunity to come back here to your alma mater.
Yeah. No, at Penn it was, being able to learn under Greg Meyer and then going on and, being able to learn with Brandon Schall. He was one of the other assistants at Penn and, being able to just work there and just see him recruit. And that was the big thing. And then going over to work with Paul Savell, that was an awesome experience, being at Drexel. And, I think that was another piece. We're just learning how to communicate to the athletes, and eventually leading to being at Temple, which was great. Yeah,
what was that kind of process like for you? I mean, obviously this kind of feels like on paper a dream opportunity. It's your alma mater to be able to step in and lead this program. Just, kind of take me through. I think you and I had the chance probably for the first time to sit down together either on the day you were hired or shortly thereafter. So, just kind of what that opportunity felt like to kind of see that come your way.
Yeah, I think, it was humbling. It was humbling very early on. Like, I remember sitting in Gavin's office, going through video and from a practice, and then, coming back to that moment, being hired, and then sitting in that same office. It was kind of like a full 360 moment, and just being able to be like, okay, this is I was an athlete here, and how do I provide a great student-athlete experience? And so I think taking that all in was pretty cool. I think that's a good way to put it. And it was just, it's such an honor to serve as the head coach, right, at the program that you once rowed at, and being able to work with some really great guys, being able to work with Dan Gettner and Scott Waters and, Bernard Fox. And so I think it's been a really cool experience to try and put the pieces together in place to set the team up for success.
I think one of the really interesting things, this topic comes up a lot on this podcast, and I think you're in a particular position to speak to it because you were a student athlete here. You are now back decade and a half later, give or take, as a head coach. And in that time, college athletics has transformed, Temple athletics has transformed, and particularly Temple crew and rowing have transformed as well. I mean, when you were here as a student athlete, I'm sure part of the appeal in its own way was there was no boathouse at that time. You guys are rowing out of, under tarps, and, it was gritty. I mean, it was tough.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was part of what you guys wore as a badge of honor and an ethos that kind of instilled in the program. And we do have a lot now. The boathouse has been renovated and reopened, and it's a jewel there on the Schuylkill, and just everything is so different in terms of and I'm just wondering how you can kind of explore the tension between those two things of we still want that toughness and that edge, but we're in a different era now, and how you've kind of bridged that divide between looking back on your experience here as an athlete and now as a coach.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot ties back to Dr. White, Coach White, just being able to have a next plan. And so you're right. In my time here at school, the boathouse was condemned. We were moved to tents that were on the side yard, right? And so, being outside, we didn't know the difference. It was like, this is what we're doing now. And Coach White was like, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to make it work, and just continuing to make it work. And, we were outside, we were there, and then it's not about the boathouse. It's not about the boats that you have. It's about the people. And I think we try to remind the guys now, even you guys have a great facility here. You have one of the best facilities on the river, right? And then you also have an on-campus facility. And then you have Rashawn with the strength and conditioning coaches downstairs working with you 3 days a week, and so you have a great athletic training system here, right? And so being able to work with Jabri and Spencer in the athletic training room, and then being able to go over and work with Reed in the Resnick Center, right? There are so many support resources here to be the best student athlete you can be, that it doesn't hinge on a facility, right? And so I think being able to instill those values into the athletes and just remind them that we are Temple Crew, and the reason we are who we are is the athletes that came before, the guys that are here now, and we're looking to continue to write the next chapters of Temple Crew history.
Well, you have certainly done that. I want to make sure I get everything right. Dadvale champions, first time since 2021. IRA comeback team of the year, IRA coaching staff of the year. In just a few short seasons, I mean, you have really been able to make a mark and produce some incredible results. And I'm wondering, just kind of in terms of what you've been able to bring to the program from a recruiting standpoint, a development standpoint, you and your staff, just what has led to the success that we've been able to see in your 3 seasons so far here at Temple.
Yeah, I think a lot of the credit goes back to the athletes and the coaching staff, right? And so the assistants play a huge part in making all of this possible, and I think the athletes doing their part and really going out and executing every day. And I talk to this with alums, it takes those guys from the top down, right? So when last year we won the varsity, we won the second varsity, we medaled in the third varsity, and we won the freshman aid, right? And so it took every single one of those guys in there to come every day and bring their best, not just for themselves, but to get the best out of their teammates. And I think Dadvale's was a result of that action all the way through the year, and not just on that day in May.
Well, and that's back to the point you made earlier, is it's, I look at Crew as kind of the iceberg theory. We see the tip of the iceberg, right? Are those 6 races and, probably less than, 40 minutes of cumulative race time it defines your entire season, and that's what gets in the record book. But the 99% that's under the sea floor is you have to be approaching that with the rigor and the intensity and the dedication that clearly this team does to be able to kind of shine when we all get to come out there in May when the weather's beautiful and get to see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, you're welcome to come out. We practice 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. Anyone?
I said that would have been daunting at an earlier stage in my life, but now having 2 young kids, I'm like, 6 sounds great. Honestly,
there you go.
Come
late
see
start
it.
to the day.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be on my 3rd cup of coffee by then. This is just more for my curiosity. I've had the privilege. I've never had another job outside of working in college athletics, and I've gotten to do a lot of things. But probably, I don't know if it's at the top, but it would be very close to the top of my personal bucket list is the Henley Regatta in England. And just for folks that don't know what it is, I'm wondering, because you've had the chance now to lead Temple there and have what I imagine has to be it's got to be the closest thing to like getting to compete at the Masters if you're a golfer. Is I assume that's what it's like from a crew and rowing perspective.
Yeah, from an outside perspective, the best thing I can put it towards is like it's almost like the town in England where it's held. It's called Henley, is a small town, quaint town, and it turns into a college town for a week. And then during that week, races play out in different categories all the way through. And I think it's one of the coolest experiences you can do as a student athlete to be able to. Now, outside like IRAs is great, right? That's your national
championship.
That holds all the way. Dad Vale's great experience.
Yep.
Henley, being able to, as an athlete, being able to go over internationally and compete representing your university on a world stage against other university athletes from other countries, other schools, other parts of the world. Just all of those fabrics being weaved together into one event is pretty cool. And then you get to the logistics piece, right? Like all those teams are coming in, boats have to get there, oars have to, like all that stuff. But that's separate. But from a spectator standpoint, I think anyone that has the opportunity to go check out the Henley Regatta as a spectator should do it. And I think it's something to strive for as an athlete. If you have a fast boat, it's a great chance to go over and test yourselves against the best in the country, I think is another way to put it. And so like outside of Henley, the next area where some of our athletes would be able to do that would be at the U23 World Championships, right? Like college-age individuals going out and racing in the summer races, and then, kind of using that as a stepping stone if they pursue it further beyond that to the, trying to make a national team. But that's like further down the line. But as far as an experience, you're right. It is probably the closest. I've never been to the Masters, but like last year we took a team there, right? And with the support of the athletic department, there were some support staff that came along as well. And that was really cool for them to see too, because I think you hear about it, but until you actually experience it, does it actually change your perception of, wow, this is like a big time deal.
Exactly.
And I think that was really cool. And I've never been to the Masters, but someone that was in the travel party was like, this is similar to the Masters. Like this is, everyone's here, they're watching what's going on. There's a element of, everyone gets dressed up, they go to the race. Like they do a really good shout out to the Henley organizers. They do a great job with it.
Yeah, where it's really just in the fabric of the city and the culture itself. I think there's only a few events that really break through in that way, and it's really cool that your sport gets the chance to be one of them. So with all that said, obviously tremendous 2025 season. We're sitting here, by the time folks listen to this, the 2026 season will have just gotten underway. Just tell me a little bit about what excites you the most going into this year, obviously trying to continue that momentum.
Yeah, no, it's led by a great group of seniors. We have being able to build off that Henley year. We have some of those guys returning to this year's squad. So, like if you finish your season, Dad Vale's, you go to IRAs, and then being able to train to Henley, right? And then they get about a 2-month break, and then being able to pick it right back up again in September is another really cool experience that's part of that Henley trip. So some of those guys are back this year, and some of them are in our top boats, and we're looking to continue where we left off. And I think that boat last year, that was a special group, and they set the bar high, and I think being able to come in and looking to match those benchmarks, and then again, just coming back, like every year is a new year, right? We can't rely on last year. And so looking to make sure that we're doing the best we can every day, coming back to talking to the guys about, bringing your best so it brings out the best in your teammate, and just helping to make everyone as fast as we can be and put them in the best position possible to succeed. Now,
no secret that this was an unusually harsh winter. It's nothing that we haven't dealt with in the Northeast, but I actually read by some measures it was the worst since '09, so you probably back in your time as a student. I don't remember that winter in particular, but that's what I heard. Most snow, most ice in a decade and a half. So we talked with Rebecca Grabowski, women's rowing head coach, a couple weeks ago in the program, and obviously talked about the effect that has when you're not going to be able to be physically out on the river in the same way that you would normally or hopefully be. How has that been kind of both a pro and a con in some ways? How has that affected the kind of ramp up into the season?
Yeah, I think kind of the compass is WWGD. What would Gavin do, right? And so just being
it's a good compass. That's going to solve most problems for you.
Yeah, Dr. White, being able to operate, what would he do, right? And so he would make the most of it, right?
Yeah.
He was very good at hey, we're gonna erg, right? We don't have options there, right? We're gonna erg. We're gonna run Walkman Towers, right? We made the most of that time. The river may not have been open, and I think the guys, they really they went all in on it. They leaned into it. They were enthusiastic through that process, and I think it's paying off with guys hitting PRs, and some of these guys have rowed for multiple years, and being at their top speed right now as we're about to get into the season is a pretty cool testament to the work that they put in. So yes, river was frozen. I haven't seen it frozen like that, and I can't remember, right? And so it's we made the most of the time that we did have, and again, back to Temple and the resources that are available here, right? We have an on-campus training center. If it's frozen outside, we can train on campus, right? And being able to get the job done.
Well, I think there's something always really special about having Temple alums as coaches and being able to, again, just to carry the legacy of Dr. White and everything that he meant. And I was privileged to have the chance to meet him a few times in my early years working here. And I just, I think keeping that legacy alive, some of the kind of founding fathers of Temple and Temple athletics in a way. And so you being one of those, I think it's you and Coach Salmon at fencing and Coach Quinn in golf are holding down that fort as Temple alums. And I think it's always just a real treat to get to hear your passion for this place and obviously being able to have success in the program, both as a student athlete and as a coach. And we wish you all the best moving into 2026.
Yeah. And now as a fan too, right?
Yes.
A highlight of being a coach here is you get free tickets, right?
Yeah.
We're going to all the football games, right? I don't think I've missed a football game yet. We're going to the basketball games, men and women. So shout out to those coaches, and those athletes as well, as a proud alum, going to those games, and supporting the athletes, I think is one of the other perks of being in this job and being an alum. So go Owls.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, that's this week's episode of the Owl Pod. I want to thank my guest, Brendan Cunningham. A reminder, the 2026 season is only a week old. Plenty of action still left on the river. The Connect Cup at the Cooper River is April 11th and 12th. Dadvale Regatta, Friday, May 8th and Saturday, May 9th, also at the Cooper River, leading up to the IRA National Championships, which are in Sacramento, California, the final weekend in May. A reminder, David and Amelia will be back on the Tuesday edition of the Owl Pod with an all-new episode. Make sure to check that out anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, owlsports.com. You name it, we've got it. New episodes twice a week. Check us out on Instagram at The Owl Podcast. I want to thank our entire Owl Pod team, our executive producer, Dan Lobaz. I'm Kevin Kopp. Thank you all so much for listening, everyone. Goodbye, and go Owls.